Jack thought his decision to deny service to the black woman would go unnoticed. But he had no idea that the passenger he turned away was the owner of the company he worked for. His world was turned upside down in an instant when he came face to face with Erica, who, without a hint of anger, offered him a chance to change his life. This revelation of his bias threatened not only his job, but also his entire belief system. What followed would shock even the most experienced observers. But let's start from the beginning. Erica Reeves, always confident and composed, wasn't the type to lose her cool easily. As the owner of a large taxi company, she was used to high standards of work and felt it was important to occasionally check on how her employees were performing. On this particular day, after long meetings and discussions, she decided to call a taxi through the app without revealing her identity to evaluate the service level. For Erica, it was just a routine way of ensuring her business was running smoothly. As she waited for the car at the corner, Erica took in the bustling cityscape around her. The air was thick with exhaust fumes and the noise of evening traffic. Finally, a car pulled up, a beat-up old taxi that looked like it had long passed its prime. The driver, a middle-aged white man, sat behind the wheel, nervously tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, his tired eyes revealing the weariness and irritation of a long day's work. When Erica opened the back door and was about to get in, the driver, whose name was Jack, shot her a sharp, suspicious look. His eyes narrowed, and his expression changed immediately. "Sorry, but I'm not taking you," he said coldly, his voice leaving no room for discussion. Erica froze for a moment, unable to believe her ears. She hadn't expected such hostility out of nowhere. "What's the problem?" she asked, trying to remain calm despite the growing tension inside her. Her voice was steady but carried an unmistakable question. Jack, frowning, didn't look at her again and curtly replied, "Find another cab." His response was short and sharp, as if he'd already made up his mind and wasn't interested in explaining or apologizing. Erica felt the tension rising but didn't show it. She asked again, calmly, "Why?" To this, Jack smirked with a hint of contempt and said, "I have the right to refuse service when I see fit." His tone was filled with a sense of superiority, as though he was in complete control of the situation. Realizing that continuing the conversation wouldn't lead to a good outcome, Erica decided not to escalate the situation. Calmly but firmly, she stepped away from the car, closed the door, and walked off, reflecting on what had just happened. The incident, while unpleasant, gave her something to think about. She decided to postpone any immediate decisions until she could assess the situation more clearly. The next day, Erica woke up determined to address the incident. She returned to her taxi company's office, intent on confronting Jack about his behavior. Walking into the spacious, sunlit office, Erica appeared composed, though her emotions were roiling inside. To her, this wasn't just a business matter. It was a reflection of systemic injustice she'd encountered throughout her life. Meanwhile, Jack, confident that the previous day's incident had gone unnoticed, continued his routine work. He believed he had done the right thing by refusing to drive Erica. His excuses were always framed around his own safety, even if they were just a cover for his hidden prejudices. He often felt that he could choose who to drive, citing his right to refuse service. For Jack, such situations weren't new. He considered himself an experienced driver who had seen and been through a lot. In his mind, a clear stereotype had formed, and he rarely thought about the consequences of his actions. That day, as on others, he calmly finished his shift, assuming everything had gone unnoticed. When he returned to the dispatch office that evening, he felt completely at ease, sure that his day had passed without incident. However, his peace was abruptly shattered when the manager called him into the office. Jack, with his usual confidence, entered the room, not expecting anything serious. He already knew how to handle such situations. A few sharp comments, some sarcasm, and the issue would be dismissed. "There's been a complaint against you," the manager began dryly, looking at Jack over the top of his glasses. Jack, wasting no time, sarcastically replied, "Oh, who's complaining this time? Another unhappy customer, I guess." He was about to continue defending his right to refuse service when the manager interrupted him. "You refused to drive a woman yesterday," the manager calmly continued, ignoring Jack's sarcastic tone. But the problem is, that woman wasn't just any passenger. That was Erica Reeves, the owner of our company. The manager's words hit Jack like a hammer. He froze, his face turning pale. Memories of the previous day flashed through his mind when he had casually refused to drive Erica. Now, the situation had drastically changed. This wasn't just any passenger. Jack realized that his actions had not only come to the attention of management, but they could also cost him his job. All of his usual excuses and justifications crumbled in an instant. Erica, determined to speak with Jack in person, arranged a meeting in her office. She understood that this conversation would not only be about his behavior, but about the principles on which her business was built. For her, it was more than just an incident with a driver. It was an opportunity to point out a problem that needed to be eradicated. When Jack entered the office, he expected to see anyone but the same woman he had refused to drive the day before. His confidence immediately crumbled, and the expression on his face changed from sarcastic to shocked. Standing before him was Erica, with the same calm confidence she had shown when she had tried to get into his taxi the day before. Her eyes were firm, but there was no anger or bitterness, just a silent demand for an explanation. Jack swallowed hard, knowing that this conversation wouldn't be easy. Erica gestured for him to sit down across from her. Her voice was steady as she began. "I want to hear from you personally why you refused to drive me yesterday." She didn't rush him, giving Jack the opportunity to explain himself. Jack, feeling the situation slipping out of his control, began to mumble vague excuses. He spoke about how long the workday had been, how he had the right to choose his passengers if he felt unsafe or tired. "I just felt like it wouldn't be the safest ride for me," he finally managed to say, carefully avoiding direct eye contact with Erica. He even tried to reference internal policies, implying that he had the freedom to choose his passengers. Erica listened to his excuses in silence, not interrupting him. Her expression remained calm, but her resolve was clear. When Jack finished, convinced that he had perhaps managed to smooth things over, there was a long pause. Erica waited, letting him realize that she hadn't accepted his words as a valid explanation. Finally, she spoke softly but firmly. "There is no place for discrimination in our company." Her voice was calm, but there was strength in it. "You refused to drive me without knowing who I was. But what's important isn't who I am. What matters is that every passenger who gets into our car deserves respect, regardless of who they are or what color their skin is." Her words sounded like a verdict, but not as punishment, rather as a truth that Jack couldn't dispute. Erica didn't shout, didn't threaten, didn't demand explanations. She simply stated a fact that Jack had to understand. Jack sat in silence, feeling his thoughts swirl in his mind. Erica's words resonated deeply, and with each passing second, he realized more and more how wrong he had been. At first, he tried to justify his actions: fatigue, a stressful schedule, his right to choose. But now those justifications seemed hollow and meaningless. He realized that his action wasn't just the result of a bad day, but a reflection of the prejudice deeply rooted in his worldview. The silence in the room lingered, but there was no need to break it. Erica, sitting across from him, continued to look at him with the same calmness, without any anger or judgment. Her firmness didn't demand conflict, it called for change. Finally, Jack raised his eyes and met her gaze. He felt his face flush with shame. I didn't think things would go this far," he began quietly, his voice filled with regret. "I was just trying to protect myself, but now I see it was fear and prejudice." Erica continued to listen, not interrupting him. There was no judgment in her gaze, only the willingness to give him a chance. "I understand now that I made a mistake," Jack said, his voice shaking as he realized the seriousness of his error. He had prepared himself for the worst, expecting to lose his job. But instead, Erica, maintaining her calm demeanor, said something unexpected. "I'm not going to fire you." Jack was stunned, his eyes widening in surprise. Erica continued, "I'm giving you a chance to change your attitude because I believe in the possibility of change. We can all learn if we want to. I'm offering you the opportunity to take training on racial ethics and understanding differences." Jack sat, overwhelmed by her generosity. He realized that this moment could have been the end of his career, but instead of punishment, he had been given a chance to change not only his behavior, but also his attitude toward people. For the first time in a long time, he felt that he could do something right. "Thank you," Jack said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I truly didn't realize. But now I understand how important this is." Erica nodded, acknowledging his words. "I hope this experience makes you think. All of our passengers deserve to feel safe and respected. I believe you can understand that and change your behavior." Jack left the office with a heavy heart, feeling both shame and gratitude. He couldn't ignore the depth of his mistake, but he also recognized that he'd been given a chance to correct it. This wasn't just a meeting with his boss. It was a significant realization of his biases that had shaken his inner world. Watching Jack leave, Erica felt a sense of satisfaction. Her actions hadn't just exposed the problem. They had become the first step toward change. She knew that real change doesn't happen overnight, but she believed that this situation could be the start of something bigger, for Jack and for her other employees.